There's a bunch of links in the...
Yep, click one of them. They're all the same link.
Oh.
I like to spam the links so everybody can see them. But today we'll be doing lesson 3.5. We'll be talking about immigration during the Gilded Age. We're going to start it off. I have a Khan Academy video for you that kind of goes over some of it. But before we get started, let's hit up this warm up. Draw or type 2 things you already know about today's topic. And today's topic is immigration during the Gilded Age. There are two things that you already know about today's topic. Give you guys about 30 more seconds to collect your thoughts and put them down. Two things you already know about today's topic. All right, we're going to be moving on here in 3, 2, 1. We got a few things. Immigrants from countries going through bad times came to America at this period of time. Most people immigrated from Europe. A few people immigrated from Asia. There were about 11.7 million people that came to America during this time. Right, so some broad knowledge of immigration during the Gilded Age. So let's move on here. Today's learning target: explain the changes in immigration in the late 19th century by studying graphs of immigration data. So we got a few graphs on here we'll look at, a few graphic organizers type stuff. Important vocabulary: immigration, nativism. This word is xenophobia. And just the term liberal, like what does that mean? Like, what does the term liberal mean? It's thrown around a lot in politics, but what is its actual definition and description? So here I got a quick video from Khan Academy explaining immigration, and then we'll go through the Pear Deck together. All right, pretty great stuff. Pretty interesting stuff. Hopefully, you all got a lot out of that. Really liking the Khan Academy videos. You're fine, Araya. Our Pear Deck link is in the shared notes. All right, so as many of you may have heard the phrase, the United States is a nation built by immigrants. Immigration has increased and shaped America's population since the first European colonists and African slaves arrived on these shores. Since we were starting out as a colony of England, those men and women and children were immigrants to this continent. During the first 100 years of the United States, U.S. immigration policies were liberal. There were practically nothing. There, don't have tuberculosis was the one main rule of immigration. But in the late 1800s, problems started to arise from cities becoming overcrowded due to urbanization and industrialization, as well as people having economic downturns. Right, as we said, a lot of these farms that people went and started during the westward expansion with the Dawes Act and the Homestead Act, a lot of those farms fail, and people have to go back to the cities in order to work at jobs uh, in order to provide for their families. So, because of all this, the city's population explodes. Um, but problems result, as we said, from overcrowding, industrialization, economic downturns, and something we're going to call nativism. Suspicion of foreign influence started to rise, and attitudes towards migrants changed, and some American citizens demanded tighter borders. If it sounds like 2023 to you, it's because the same issues were going on during the Gilded Age, the same arguments, the same problems that have been going on forever. During the Gilded Age, millions of immigrants from Europe and Asia came to the United States in search of a better life. Early in the history of this country, immigrants came primarily from Great Britain, from Ireland, and other northern European countries. We call these immigrants oftentimes old immigrants, and most of them practiced Protestant Christianity. Cities at this time were governed by corrupt political machines, which were run by political bosses. And these political bosses offered immigrants places to live and jobs in return for votes in local elections. So they'd say, like, hey, we know where to find you an apartment, and we know a factory that's hiring for jobs right now, and we can get you those things right off the boat. They would meet these people on the docks, and they would step off the boat, and these men representing this political machine, whether it be the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or whatever the independent party was at the time, they said, well, to these immigrants, we'll hook you up if you vote for our candidates. And here in the graphs, we see some shifting patterns in immigration, as we said, from 1840 to 1860. Primarily Northern and Western Europeans were the ones who were immigrating, with a few Eastern and Southern European countries and a few North and South America. That's Canada and South America and Mexico. Mexico is part of North America. But 1880 to 1900, that 20-year span, 61% still coming from Northern and Western Europe, but a lot more from Eastern and Southern Europe. That's Poland, that's Romania, that's Czechoslovakia, Belarus, Russia, as well as Italy, Spain. These are all the big ones. Still not so much coming from Asia and all other areas, making up the rest. New immigrants arrived from Eastern and Southern Europe. That's what we call the Italians, the Russians, the Germans, the Irish, the Greeks, many of whom were Jewish or Orthodox Christians or Catholics. They all practiced Christianity, but they practiced different sects of Christianity, like different versions. Immigrants lived in overcrowded urban apartments called tenements, and with many families living next to and alongside each other in small spaces, these tenements were very crowded and dirty. So, real quick, what do the graphs tell us about immigration during the Gilded Age? One more minute on this. All right, let's see what we said here. Most people during the 1880s and through 1900s came from Eastern and Southern Europe, moved to America. Northern and Western percentages went down due to the influx of more immigrants from different parts of the world. They were shifting and moving in Northern and Western Europe a lot. So, yeah, again, prior to 1860, most immigrants came from Great Britain and Ireland, maybe France, Northern Europe, who were practiced Protestantism, whereas in the 1800s to 1880s to 1900, still most came from Northern Europe, but a lot more come from Eastern and Southern Europe as well. We start to see a massive influx of immigrants from these countries. And as we mentioned briefly yesterday, people move for a lot of different reasons. They're pushed out of their reasons for environmental issues, social issues, economic issues, political issues, and this could be poverty, this could be fear of dictatorship, this could be natural disaster or lack of jobs, and they tend to move towards places because they have the opposite issues than their previous country. They could be a safe country. They could have lots of opportunities or economic stability, or maybe just more freedom in general. And it's important to note, guys, immigrating somewhere, it's incredibly difficult, right? When you hear somebody complaining about maybe a country or politics or something, and somebody goes, "Well, if you don't like it, you can just leave." Um, it's incredibly difficult to move your entire life, maybe your family, across the world and be accepted into a new country. And again, as we mentioned, the United States at this time, their immigration policy was practically non existent, but the opportunity for economic surplus, an opportunity to get rich, um, to work hard, to make your own way, that was all available in the United States during this time. It was a major pull factor to the United States because of industrialization and urbanization. Politically, we were coming up in the world as a major world power, which we'll talk more about in the next unit. And environmentally, there was more land than there was people. There was, abundance of good land available for very reasonable and very cheap prices. But again, it's important to note that immigrants undertook dangerous migrations to make the journey here and to make the journey anywhere. And like we said, we categorize those as push and pull factors. Push factors are negative things, right? When you push something away, that you don't want it near you, right? When you push somebody down, you don't want it near you. You don't want that person near you. And when you are pushed out of your country, you are pushed so far that you are going to leave the country of your origin and migrate to a new one. Right? That's not a good thing in most cases. Um, Push factors make people want to leave a place. Pull factors are positive things. They pull you in, right? You pull in someone you love for a hug. You pull in a catch. You pull in people to a positive situation, which is what the United States was as far as opportunity, uh, economically, politically, for all of these immigrants. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this slide because we saw this exact same slide yesterday. Again, the main points that we need to hammer in now. Immigrants from Europe were arriving in New York at Ellis Island. Immigrants from Asia were arriving in San Francisco from Angel Island. They were seeking economic opportunity, a better life, freedom of religion, freedom from persecution. They were escaping famine, poverty. Right? There's a whole number of reasons why people immigrate, but it's hard. New immigrants on the East Coast versus the West Coast. As we've briefly mentioned in the past, Ireland was facing a potato famine at this time, which led to a mass migration of Irish people to New York City and the East Coast of the United States. Other groups like Italians, Germans, Poles, European Jews also immigrated to the United States during this time. New York established the first immigration processing center at Castle Garden in 1855. And then the Immigration Act of 1882 implemented a tax and health check for new arrivals, but the process quickly became overwhelmed. The Immigration Act of 1891 gave the federal government control over immigration and led to the opening of Ellis Island in 1892 as a facility for screening European immigrants. And really, if you showed up with tuberculosis or some other kind of illness like smallpox or influenza, they just quarantined you on Ellis Island until you were better, and then they just let you in. Immigration proved more difficult for Chinese and East Asian immigrants. New arrivals to the Pacific Coast were detained at Angel Island. This was a checkpoint near San Francisco. Here, immigrants faced long interrogations. Interviewers asked them complicated and confusing questions. Immigrants could be interrogated multiple times. Some were held for many months. Once admitted to the United States, they faced racism and isolation. But the Chinese would only be admitted to the United States until 1882. When individuals or groups are racist or xenophobic, which means anti-immigrant, xenophobic towards immigrants, we refer to this as nativism. Right? Nativism is the policy of protecting the interests of native-born or established. During the Gilded Age, many Americans held nativist views. They blamed foreign workers for the lack of jobs and immigrants for their own problems. You might hear the old adage, the immigrants are taking our jobs. They're taking our jobs from us. They're willing to work for less money. These nativist views were widespread and very powerful throughout the late 1800s. Here we have a political cartoon that says the only one barred out, and it's a Chinese man sitting on a box that says order. There's peace and sobriety behind him. The gates of liberty are shut to him. Right, he's got a bag of industry. Like, again, the Chinese built the railroads in the western half of the Transcontinental Railroad. And then it says here, notice, communists, nihilists, socialists, Fenians, and hoodlums, you're welcome, but no admittance to the Chinese. The Chinese Exclusion Act is the first nativist legislation during the Gilded Age, and it was passed in 1882. This act banned all immigration from China for 10 years, and it was renewed again and again every 10 years until 1943. For 63 years, you were not allowed to immigrate from China to the United States because of nativism and xenophobia. A famous poet at the time, Emma Lazarus, wrote a poem about immigration. Really, this poem is about the Statue of Liberty. And it reads, not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed, sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch whose flame is the imprisoned lightning and her name. Mother of exiles, from her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome, her mild eyes command. The air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame, keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she. With silent lips, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these to the homeless. Tempest toast to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Real quick, share your thoughts in the poll. What are your thoughts on the new Colossus? If you'd like to listen to it again, there's a audio included. You can click it and hear me reading it to you again. Finally, if you could just answer this quick exit ticket, what did you find easy about this lesson? What did you find to be the most interesting and challenging about this lesson? And what was too hard about this lesson? All right, please finish up your thoughts here. I'm going to set this to student paced, so it may kick you to the end, or to the beginning, I should say. All right, from there, we're going to go to modules. We're here in week 9, Tuesday, October 17th, lesson 3.5. Here is that Khan Academy video. If you'd like to watch that again. Here is a copy of the Pear Deck and a student-paced lesson. You have this now for your own notes. We're going to go ahead and work on workbook 3.5, Huddled Masses. So let's open that up. We have 6 questions today. I'm going to give you guys about